We're really happy to welcome you. Okay. I'm pleased to be here, and I'm here to talk a little bit about my PhD research on part-time work among young women. So I'm Ilse Laurijsen from the University of Brussels. This is the title of my PhD. Divided between work and family, panel study into the context and dynamics of the choice of part-time work. For the analysis, I used data from the SONAC project, which was set up initially to monitor the transition from school to work among youth in founders. And what's very special about this data is that we call this a panel character of this data. So we interviewed the same people several times during their first years on the labor market at age 23, 26, and 29. My PhD research is embedded in the work. I need to go back. Okay. My PhD research is embedded in the work of the research group TOR, which some of you may know for its research on time use data. And although I did not use time use data for my research, the topics that I analyzed show quite some continuities with the topics that are very general in our research group using these data. So let me start this talk with taking a look at time pressure, at how people experience that a day, a week, does not have enough hours just to complete all the things we all want to do. These are the items that we used in our research just to measure how much time pressure people are experiencing, and by using, based on how much people agree with these items, we constructed a score for everyone. We scored everyone between 0 and 100, indicating how much time pressure they are experiencing in their daily life. And what I want to show you is how the experience of time pressure changes over age with the life cycle. This is showing this mean scores on time pressure, and horizontal scale is age, so starting at age 18 until 65. And this is really showing a very specific age pattern. So what's happening is that young people at age 18, they have rather low scores on this time pressure, and then when they grow older, in their mid-20s, these scores are going up to be reaching their highest peak in the people's 30s or 40s, and even the first half of their 50s, and then afterwards these scores are going down again. So these feelings of time pressure are highest in what we call the active age, so the age in which people are combining work, having a family, and all kinds of other kinds of responsibilities. These all come together, and we also know from time use research that this is linked to the time use of these people. So it's particularly persons who are doing many sorts of activities, combining in one day, in 1 week, who feel the highest amounts of time pressure. Now, to be more specific, time pressure is also linked to work-family conflicts, and this is more the topic of my research. And in my analysis, I found that it is linked with, first, with having children. So having children increases time pressure. Looking at one person and what this means for that person when these children, when parenthood is entering. And I also found, which is another aspect, that work-family conflict is strongly related to work characteristics. Now let me illustrate first. The effect of having children. So here I have, I will plot the amount of change in these feelings of time pressure between the age of 26 and 29. And I have a first group of women, this is only women, who have at both ages no children. So this group experiencing some increase in time pressure. Then the second group, I call them the new mothers, so these are the women who have no children at age 26, but they have children at age 29. Their time pressure clearly is much more increased than for the other group. And then there's the third group, which are the women who already had children at age 26. Their increase in time pressure is somewhat between those previous two groups. What's also interesting here is that the most important increase in experiencing time pressure is for these new mothers, not for those who already have children and perhaps have additional children. So really, this first step into parenthood is changing their lives quite a lot, also in how they experience this time pressure. Okay, I've made it more graphic. So what happens to work-life balance? With children, work-life balance becomes more difficult. And in my research, I looked at how part-time work is used by these young women to try to counterbalance or offset this negative effect of having children or family formation. So here we look again at how these feelings of time pressure change between the ages 26 and 29 for a group of women who worked the same hours at these 2 points. So they do feel some increase in time pressure, but then there's a group of women who increased their hours of work or of paid work. For them, this increase in time pressure is larger. And then there's a group of women who decreased the number of hours. And clearly, this group also experienced some decline in their time pressure feelings. Okay. I'm a little bit lost. So what this showed is that reducing work time also reduces time pressure. But I also found that high time pressure, high feelings of time pressure precede the reduction in working time. So this is important, I think. So I found that it is the women who experience the highest amounts of time pressure who later on decide to go working part-time. So because of these two findings, I conclude that part-time work is an effective time pressure reducing strategy for these young women. And now I turn to the other part of the work-family conflict story, focusing more on the role of work characteristics. Because I also found that work characteristics are strongly related to these feelings of time pressure and also to the decision to reduce the work time for mothers. Now, what kinds of work characteristics do I mean? Well, some of you probably know or are familiar with the literature on the link between work characteristics and well-being. More recently, literature is also growing on linking these work characteristics to work-family balance. With on the one side, in general, negative characteristics, which we call job demands, and on the other side, more positive characteristics, which we call job resources. Now, what's important maybe is not just the sum of these positive and negative characteristics, but also their rather very specific configuration. For example, high demands in a job are very stressful, but research has shown that this is much less so the case when it is accompanied with high resources. And this is also what Grönlund found in research linking work characteristics to work-life balance. She concluded that, interestingly, women in jobs with high demands and high control, which could be regarded as a prototype for modern flexible work life, do not experience more work to family conflict than men, even when working the same hours. And let me illustrate this also with a graph from my own research on part-time work, what that could mean. here I used a measure of how stressful the job probably could be based on the work characteristics, which is the vertical axis, and this is plotted here on the horizontal axis, number of years since first job, so since leaving school, up until 10 years after leaving school. And what I was looking for was how do these jobs change when women get children, when they become mothers, and when or if they change to part-time work. And this is just a simulated prediction. So at 4 years after leaving school, I plotted what happens when they become mothers, and at 6 years what happens if they go working part-time. But this is not really the point I want you to see. What I want you to remember from this graph is what is happening really in the initial career of these women. Because what I found is that if I look at different groups of women, the group of women who start working part-time after having children, that their initial work career is characterized by much more job strain. So this is a green line. Then the group of women who also have children at age 29 but continue to work full-time. So here I find that not only women who decide to go working part-time before have experienced higher time pressure, but also are in more distressing jobs. So this is probably an element they take into account when deciding to work part-time or reduce their number of working hours. Now I also looked at some other elements which could be important in the decision to work work part-time for mothers. In particular, I looked at attitudes, but I found that, for instance, there's no difference between the mothers who choose to work part-time and the mothers who continue to work full-time in terms of traditional general attitudes. I did find a small difference in working values. So the women with lower intrinsic motivation tended to choose more for this part-time option. But I need to add that this intrinsic motivation is not very stable during the life course. We see that motherhood initially, for some, lowers intrinsic motivation for your work. It is also influenced very much by the type of job. If you have a motivating job, this intrinsic motivation also tends to become stronger. So I've come to my conclusions about, I think there's some two main mechanisms that link part-time work to work or occupational characteristics. And the first one is, well, if you work in a very high, in a job with very much job strain, a distressing, stressful job, that just depletes your energy. So not just at work, but this also spills over into private life. And I think that part-time work then can be used as a strategy to ensure enough energy is left just to fulfill all commitments, including family care. On the other hand, if you are working in a challenging job, this is really rather motivating. And it also, I think, motivates people to make the combination of the job with other commitments just work, even on a full-time basis. And also, I have this idea that these are the kind of jobs which train people in problem solving. So I think also this problem solving capacity can help, can also be used to solve practical problems such as having to do with more family conflict issues. As I already said, attitudes prove to be much less important. Something I didn't say yet, but maybe I should, is that I was not really looking into this. I was not looking into really what are the effects of becoming a mother on your work. But I did find that these women after having children, some of them got in lower jobs. Because most often there's this idea that this is because women choose to work part-time, for instance, but it's really not the consequence in my data of working part-time, but it's really already after having these children. So I'm not really sure what's happening there.
Yeah, I would say probably to check this, you should do the same study for people who are not becoming mother, but who are also moving from full-time to part-time, to check if at that time also they, because we know that in lots of companies you may have kind of non-written rules saying, well, if you work part-time, you are not an ambitious person, so don't expect to be promoted.
Yes, that was my expectation. That I would see this when they were choosing or becoming part-time workers, but this was not what I found. So there was no real change in the job characteristics after changing to part-time work, but already before.
But you had this element of motherhood in any case. So if you would also have a look at a group where there is no impact of motherhood, then you could also say, well, clearly there is no impact of part-time on possible job deterioration. Because, I mean, here probably it's a double effect.
Yeah, it's
you
not
can't measure really which one is the strongest.
It's a little bit difficult because I looked at these young people. A lot of them work many hours.
Sure.
Yeah. Working part-time is also, in many cases, just 4 days a week or something like that. So it's not really about small part-time jobs. And the group of women who starts working part-time but is not really having a family yet is rather small. Just really in the beginning, just to start up their career. So this was not really, I thought, referenceable. But this could be, of course, an element to this. And finally, perhaps I should say something about what is missing in my research. It was focused mainly on women because it's women, it's mothers, not fathers, who reduce their working hours. So have this representative group of people, and the number of men who decide to work part-time is very low. So this was not, for my scientific research, not very good to go into. Now, why is this? Well, of course, a common answer is it has to do with gender norms. This is also reflected in the different take-up by gender of family leave, or it's also used as a main argument for a more general working time reduction, for instance. But of course, I think this is a within couple decision also. And besides these gender norms, I think that well, partners compare their relative work positions, and well, at least in Belgium, I don't know if it's everywhere the case, but if you look at age differences between partners in a couple, it's mostly the men who are some years older than the women. And in my research, clearly, if you look at work positions, there's some job growth. So the longer you are on the labor market, the better prospects you have, better positions you are in. So that is why I think that when partners feel the need that someone needs to go reduce their work time, just for the family, this balance more often will be made in favor of the male partner because he's already longer on the labor market, because he's most often the older partner.
I don't think so, because it's older as well, because it's older, but it's a financial impact as well.
So yes, what I really wanted to stress is often it is thought about financial aspects, but because I looked at work characteristics which are more linked to occupation, more the content of the work you are doing, I think it's not just how much you earn with your job which is compared, but also, do you like your job? Is this motivating? Is this stressful? And in my data, looking, people start in more stressful jobs, and this becomes better after they are working longer in the labor market. Same for challenging jobs. These are jobs which people need to grow in. So if you are longer working, you have higher chances of having this challenging job which motivates you to stay there.
Yeah, but I mean, it was in couple decisions. I think it's an important factor as well.
Yeah.
And have you looked at other kind of decision around the job, the choice of the job, like changing job and even company to work closer from home, for example, things like that, instead of reducing the working time?
No, I've just looked at the main places, occupational characteristics, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ilse.